Shalom, welcome, ברוכים הבאים to Real Talk. And today I'm so honored to have the former state representative, the Honorable Elaine Bloom, to our beautiful sanctuary in Temple Emanu-El, where you attend every Shabbat.
Yes.
So how is it to be here in the middle of the week?
Very different, but this place just has a beautiful feeling about it, even when it's empty. We know that when you come here, you really feel you can connect your own thoughts to the Almighty.
And I'm so happy that you give us this time to come and share with us your story, because it's so beautiful, and I want our congregation and the people outside of it to realize the amazing people that are part of this tribe, to hopefully get people that are not yet connected to us to want to connect to us, and the people that are listening to you to be inspired by you, because I know how much you inspire me.
Well, I thank you for that.
Well, this is really my goal, to help people connect with our Torah, because I know how easy it is to me to find things that are so relevant. And I think sometimes people hear about the Torah and think, oh, that's so old. They don't even try, right? They have that blockage. So hopefully I'm a powerful Israeli that can remove that blockage. But now I want to talk about you and how powerful you are. And we're going to go through some of your accomplishments if time will allow us to go through all of it. Before we start, I always like to connect to the Torah portion. So we are starting a new year, 2026. We are starting a new book. We just finished the book of Genesis, Bereshit, and we're starting now the book of Exodus, Shemot. So we are now introduced to Moses, and thinking about you coming in today for us to talk about your life and connecting it to the Torah portion. I thought it's just perfect. You are Moses in so many ways, and one of the ways is because you are from the house of Levi, right? When you get an aliyah here, I say Chaya
Bat Yehuda Halevi
Bat
ve'etel.
Yehuda Halevi ve'etel. So, are you understanding that when I say the honorable, that this is a big honor to be a Levi? You get the second aliyah, right?
First of all, I grew up at a time when women were not recognized in Jewish life. Had things been different, I probably would have geared myself to growing up to becoming a rabbi. Really,
You never
truly.
said that to me. Oh, you would have been an amazing rabbi.
I was always very, very interested in making sure that people knew what Judaism had to offer. My parents were both immigrants. On June 15, 1930, I mentioned that because on June 14, 1930, the day before they were married, my future husband was born.
Oh.
And he always said that he was born on June 14th, the day before my parents got married, to make sure they went through with it.
Of course, so they can create you, bring you to the world. Of course.
I was a very happy child growing up. I didn't know we were poor, but we had food on the table. My parents took very good care of us. My father worked very long days, and he was a jeweler and a watchmaker. And my brother Herschel, and that was his English name, Herschel, Tzvi, and it was his Hebrew name. He was 5.5 years older than I. And obviously growing up, whatever he did, I thought I wanted to do. So he went to the Bronx High School of Science in New York City. So I went to the Bronx High School of Science, which was a school that was known for more rigorous work. And then I went to Barnard College. I graduated from Barnard.
That's only girls?
Women. It was the women's college part of Columbia University. At the time that I graduated, finished my coursework at Bonard, I was 19 years old, and I was married for 1 year at that time. So Philip was older than I.
And Philip was judge.
Philip became a judge in 1984.
Judge Bloom.
Judge Bloom, and everybody loves him, and still wherever I go in the community, people still come up to me and remember him and how kind he was, how smart he was, how funny he was. He had this sort of sense of humor that people wanted to come into his courtroom and just sit and watch because it was interesting.
He was a talented judge.
Very talented. And I was very involved with the National Council of Jewish Women. My mother had been a Hadassah leader in New York, but you know, the way sometimes you want to do something different from what your mother did.
Right.
So I got involved through National Council of Jewish Women and actually was elected president of the Greater Miami section of council in 1971. And the office of the National Council of Jewish Women was in the Federation building by that time, and it was right next door to Channel 10, which at that point was on Biscayne Boulevard. And because of some of the work and people that I had worked with, that I had done in the past, I would very frequently be called by somebody from Channel 10 to be a community expert, you know, to speak. So I was used to being a well-known person in the community. And in 1974, this was after the Watergate problems and having the president who was removed, I was urging women. At that time, I had been the chair of the new Dade County Commission on the Status of Women. So I was urging women to run for public office at the city level, the town level, the county level, wherever. And people started saying to me, why don't you run? And as it turned out, in June of 1974, I finally made the decision that I would run. So I went to the Florida legislature, and I worked very hard there, having my background as a community person and knowing issues, but it was so much more difficult than I even expected. And prior to my being elected, only 11 women had ever been elected to the Florida House of Representatives in the 150 years before that. And that's what this book about women in the Florida legislature is all about. And I right away used my skills that I had developed in the community, and I got a lot done. And the guy who was at that point was the speaker who expected to run for governor, thought I would be a great running mate. So people, you know, used to talk about me as possibly a future governor. By the time 1978 rolled around, my local community here needed somebody to run for a Senate seat. There were multi-member districts then, and it's hard to think about it at this point, but we were represented by 3 people in the Senate, and 2 of them, one became Secretary of State and one became governor, Bob Graham. So we needed somebody to run for one of those seats. So I listened to people urging me, and I ran for the state Senate. That was the first time we'd used punch card votes, and I lost by about 200 some votes. The next day I had a phone call from Congressman Claude Pepper, who was a giant in this community. And he said, Elaine, you are going to run for office again. You have too much to offer. Don't sit and cry. Come and see me. And I went to see him, and he gave me a big pep talk. And he said, do things in the community, be ready, And I've had some other parts of my career that kept me in the fold. I represented the Florida Association of Jewish Federations in Tallahassee as a lobbyist for 5 years. So we got a lot of things done for the Jewish community and the Gentile community as well, because I represented the Florida Association of Jewish Federations and something called the United Protestant Appeal, and worked with the United Ways of Florida. So I was called in the newspapers by one of the writers the leader of the God Squad.
So pause right there, because what you just said, the leader of God Squad?
Of the God Squad.
Of the God Squad. So this Torah portion is when we have the moment of the burning bush, where Moses is the chosen. You know, God is choosing him to do his work in a way, right? God's work.
Go to Pharaoh.
And go to Pharaoh and let my people go and get us out of the slavery and out of the hard life that we endured in Egypt. So which one of your moments do you think was the burning bush moment in your life where you felt, yes, it's people urging you to do this and do that, but where you understood that it was really God is showing you the way that you were meant to do His work?
It was probably the time that I then went back and ran for an opening when one of the members of the House from this area resigned to run for governor. He didn't win, but he left an open seat, and he had called me and asked me to be prepared to run. And it was a special election. Special elections can be funny, you know, sometime. And that I was elected at the primary election in February of 1986. But the general took place in March, so I wasn't sworn in until March. And I won in February with 82% of the vote to go back to the legislature, which was a very important acknowledgement that, you know, the people knew who I was and wanted me back. And
believed you can do the work.
And from that point on, I just tore through all kinds of things. I had the honor of a total amount of service of 18 years and 9 months.
I love that. Hi.
Hi. And I chaired 8 committees and subcommittees in areas as diverse as tourism and tourism or healthcare
or the arts.
I was responsible for getting all the funding for all the arts organizations of Miami Beach, but the tourism and cultural affairs was all together. But I chaired all kinds of other committees too. So I had a very, very broad background, and then in between 1992 to 94. I was honored to be the Speaker Pro Tem of the Florida House, which means I was like the second in command working with the Speaker. And I would, you know, take over the running the business of the House when the Speaker wanted to go off the floor or do something else. It was an incredible, wonderful opportunity. And I also had the distinction of being the first ever kosher member of the Florida House.
Wow. And
this came out as a fact that people became aware of, because in Tallahassee, if people go with a group of any interest group that they're part of, they usually want to have a meeting with legislators after the committee meeting sessions are over. So there are tables full of whatever it is that they serve up in Tallahassee, and I don't need to be
not so kosher.
Not so kosher. And people would see that I only ate carrots and celery. And then people would come over and say, why do you not eat all of this beautiful stuff we have here? And I say, because I observe the biblical dietary restrictions. And then they would ask further, and I would be willing to tell them that that's why it's a system of God consciousness, and that's why when we're making the laws, we have to remember that we have the responsibility of providing care for the needy, and so forth and so on. So it was a very wonderful ability to transmit knowledge to other people.
Yeah, and that's really the rabbi in you, that you do not miss a chance to teach.
And during of the period that I was out of office, something else occurred. Elaine Gordon, who was a member of the House, who was elected 2 years before I was, and Nikki Baer, who was a very well-known women's advocate for issues, and I were given the opportunity to do a weekly radio program on WIOD on 79th Street, where they had the original headquarters. And this was a radio program at 9 p.m. on Saturday nights. And one of my earliest interviews on this radio program was with the woman who was the first female rabbi.
Oh.
So that's why I've sometimes said that if life had been different, I might have, gone that way.
Yeah, and interview yourself.
Well, my mother could have been a rabbi. She knew, she was so brilliant. My mother was 5 feet tall when you stretched her. And, but everybody loved her and everybody thought she was super special. And she knew the foreign policy interests of every major country in the world and could tell you, why it was wrong if it was. She was very, very bright. So if times had been different for women, maybe she would have done something. If times had been different in the 1960s and even 1970s, maybe I would have done something different.
I know, but still what you did is literally God's work, and you did so much. And if I will open this this poster that only has 100 bills that you passed, and this is, it says here, I'm not even saying that myself. It says, and this is just a sample of how Elaine Bloom gets things done. How do you do this?
I worked very hard. I really did, and it was the honor of a lifetime to be able to do all that.
And is there any bill here that you were the most excited when you got it to pass, or the ones that you thought it was the most important one? Anything that sticks out from so many of them?
It's interesting. There were so very many, but one of the things that hurts to this day is that I had been one of the legislators, for example, who got helmets required for people riding motorcycles.
Oh, thank God for you.
And that was a very big deal.
Yeah.
But then in 1999...
it changed to only sunglasses.
We had a new governor whose his brother was governor of Texas, and he had removed the requirement. He had
good set of hair on his head, and he wanted to show it off while he was riding his bike. It's all about the look.
But one of the things I do see is that, thank God, my bill that put bicycle helmets on children still requires that.
Thank God for that.
So you still, when
that's what I would tell my daughters.
There were billboards all over the county when we got that bill passed. That it's now required to put a helmet on. And I don't know, with some people, I think there was a Dolphin football player and a Heat basketball player, and I was in the middle holding this helmet.
And I remember, because when you had your injury, when you fell and you had to go to the hospital, and I was there with you, and the nurse came in, or somebody from the administrative of the hospital, and they wanted you to sign a document, and you told her that you created this document. And I thought that was crazy, right? What are the odds of her that she could meet you in person, what she has all the patients sign? So can you tell us about that?
Oh, I think you're talking about the requirement that people know what their rights are, and the rights and responsibilities of a patient, the rights and responsibilities of the hospital.
Exactly.
So
and
that was something that I did
in
in my capacity as chair of healthcare.
that is beautiful, and so important to know what your rights are, because sometimes when you're in that place and you feel so vulnerable, you forget sometimes that you even can open your mouth and say something. So it's very important. There's another way that I like you to see how amazingly you connect with this Torah portion. Your Hebrew name is here, because in this Torah portion, Pharaoh was very worried that we're becoming too mighty,
Too numerous.
too numerous. And what does
Like the stars. And
like the stars and like the sand, and too many for their own good. And he gave orders to the midwives to kill all male babies, but the baby girls can live. And it says, Ve'im bat hi v'chaya, and she would be alive. Chaya is your name, and Chaya means
life.
Alive. And I love to see it, because this is, other than the fact that this is your name, for you to have, all those bills passed, and your name is in so many documents, important documents.
Well, the names, fortunately, get left behind.
Oh, they left.
And in the law books, all you see is what was
Okay,
passed.
so maybe
and little numbers.
So even better to say that your name is on the most important document on our Bible, right? You have your name in this Torah portion. So that was another thing. And then, I remember that I forgot for what it was, if it was maybe for Jerusalem Day, that I called you very spontaneously, and I said, Elaine, can you come and sing along with me, because I know you know the words for Yerushalayim Shel Za'av. And then you said something to me which connects also amazingly to this Torah portion, to the story of Moses. You said something like, you're asking me to sing, when actually my own teacher, when I was asked to sing, said I can't even talk well. So can you tell us that story?
Oh, well, I was in the third grade.
Third grade.
I apparently started singing, I don't know whether it's first, second, or third grade, but every week there was an assembly. Some of you may remember we used to wear white blouses, midi blouses, and depending on what age you were, you had a little tie that went through a loop of the color of your age. And for whatever, I don't know how it came to be, but at one point I started being asked to sing at the assembly, whatever the song was that they wanted. And it was almost every week that I was given this honor. But I had this teacher in third grade, Mrs. Waldman.
If you hear this, Mrs. Waldman.
No, I'm sure she's long gone. And for whatever reason, when she called on me, oh yes, when when the teacher asks a question and the hand goes up, I guess maybe it is obnoxious to the teacher that one kid keeps on raising the hand. Let somebody else do it.
And you knew probably all the answers.
And she said to me, and then I would stand up and I would give the answer. And she said, I don't want you to talk anymore because you've got marbles in your mouth. Oh,
She said pearls. That's what I have in my mouth. Pearls.
No, she said marbles. And I remember my mother was home when I got home every day. And that's something you usually would tell somebody, a parent. I was so embarrassed, I never told my mother. Never told her when I was a child. And actually, I did not talk from that point on. I kept it to myself. So by the time I graduated from 9th grade, I was 2 years ahead of myself.
You are ahead of yourself.
But I was capable of doing it. And then I was very lucky to go to the Bronx High School of Science. My big brother, Herschel, had gone there before me. And at Bronx Science, I didn't keep quiet, and tried out for the cheerleader squad, and I wound up as captain of the cheerleaders.
You never told me that.
So it wasn't until much later that I realized that that probably is what gave me the courage to be able to go out and speak to large crowds.
Oh.
Because it's very intimidating.
Interesting.
By the time I was a young mother living up in Northeast Dade County, and we would go to object to a roadway being opened up or something happening, the people around me from the community would say, Elaine, you go and speak for us. And that's how I started to be sort of a leader. And that's why when somebody came and said, Elaine, please run for the legislature. We need you there.
If only your teacher would have known. But I think maybe at that moment when your teacher told you something so
mean
and hurtful, that might have been actually your greatest gift. And maybe that's what pushed you forward to show her how wrong she is.
Fortunately, I never went back. I never looked back. But you're right.
With yourself. Sometimes it doesn't have to be in front of her, but for yourself.
It did probably push me to do that.
And for you to become who you became from a girl that had marbles in her mouth, that's a humongous transition. Just like Moses, he couldn't speak, he had a stutter. And for somebody like Moses to become the one who was the person that communicated, of course, with Aaron, his brother's help, but to get us at the end out of Egypt and become Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our rabbi, our leader, spiritual leader, this is an amazing transformation. So I think you represent that transformation. And
fortunate.
What you said now about the cheerleading, I love it, because it's almost like you cheered yourself, right? To become.
It made me more confident. Yes. It was a wonderful opportunity for me. We were very nice young women, and we cheered only for basketball games because the school didn't have a football team. It did have a soccer team, but it didn't have a football team. So, but that's what got me, I guess, into loving basketball. So.
And also, one of your loves is the state of Israel. I know how much you love Israel.
And I love Israel. I grew up in a home that was my father.
Say the word, I want to hear. It was very Zion.
My father was very involved with the labor Zionist movement. Oh. And their big event every year was called the Third Seder. They had a dinner every year, the night after the second Seder of Passover. And my parents didn't believe or didn't afford babysitters, so I probably went to those dinners from the age of maybe 7 or 8 on every year. Wow. So I grew up watching that, and they were very passionate. What I do want you to talk about, though, is that I was very privileged to be able to do things after the legislative years.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I was involved with a lot of organizations and activities on behalf of women, on behalf of Israel. I spoke in lots of different venues, to different organizations. And then in the year 2015, I was approached by people that I knew well who wanted me to take over as president and CEO of a group of skilled nursing facilities because I'd had the background. I passed a lot of legislation that affected nursing homes. I passed a lot of legislation that affected elderly people. So that was my
10 years ago.
It's amazing that
I was
77 in March of 2015, 77 and a half. I took that job and worked there until COVID really got me out of it, and the nursing homes were sold to a for-profit company. But it was one of the most exciting things for me ever to really see how what you do and what you write into the law really affects people.
Of course. And you still affect people. And I know in this temple, you're on the board. And that is very, how shall I say it? You know, for somebody, like you're saying, when you become a person of age, right, 88, some people will say, leave me alone. You know, I'll come to temple, but don't ask me for too much. You know, I just want to drink my coffee, read my paper, and relax. But you still find ways to give back and do. And I know when we are in meetings together, how much important input you have in our meetings. And I thank you for still doing so much and serving.
Temple Emanu-El is very important to me.
Yes. And the next question I want to answer for you, because it says, what did you do recently that gave you feeling of purpose? And I'm answering for you that it was being on the board of Temple Emanu-El, because I hope that it gives you a sense of purpose. I know that your voice on the board is very valuable, and I thank you for taking your time.
It's my honor.
We need you, Elaine Bloom.
My honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. This Real Talk was great, and next week you'll get to meet another member of our congregation.